where you live, the basic like biographical information. That's a great, exciting way to start.
Well, I just realized I'll have to let you guys in on a little secret about me that a handful of people in our church know about me. I swallow a lot of gum. Because I've preached a few times in our church, I do announcements all the time, and I'm like on my way up there and I realize I've got gum in my mouth. So if you watch real closely, I'll probably do it again this weekend. I'll make my way all the way up there and be like, I gotta talk. So I'll swallow gum on the way to speak most of the time. Or like if somebody approaches me in conversation, I'll probably swallow my gum. So I'm gonna go ahead and swallow my gum for you.
I can't do that. I've tried like
we're good now.
Hundreds.
So I can speak a little more clearly. So
I cannot swallow gum. Like I seriously can't.
I didn't really think it was a talent, but it's.
Can anything swallow gum? I guess. Can any of you not swallow gum? Like no, Mark.
Have you guys heard that like 7 years rumor?
Yeah.
I can't believe that's true.
You did.
I know. I'm not gonna make it. Let me introduce myself just a little bit, and I'll let Mark ask some questions that will give you more info about my background. I am the youth pastor at a church in Indianapolis on the north side of town. I've been there for 2 years. I was a teacher before that. God called me out of teaching to go into ministry. I'll get into a little more of that as we talk, but I love it. I've known Mark for a few years now. We've connected a little bit through some mutual friends and churches and other stuff. I have a youth group that God has put me to minister to that's really similar to you guys. They're similar size, similar kids, lots of similar things, and I've had the privilege of sharing my story with them a number of times. I'm excited to share with you guys this weekend. Are you excited to be here? Are you excited to get to step away from life for a minute?
Makes me feel kind of stupid.
I'm excited about that too.
It's all good.
So.
Nice.
Like, what was that?
I want to surf, but that's supposed to. Alright, one thing, icebreaker thing, I thought, do you have any funny stories of camps or retreats? If not, it's okay.
I was, like, anytime I signed up for a church retreat, they would, like, double pack the first aid kit. I had a tendency to get hurt.
I brought a first aid kit.
I was going to ask you.
Yeah, so I know, I saw it, and I thought, good, because you never know.
I was expecting for them.
The worst thing, I think, we were playing this night game, which is a bad idea in the woods. And I ran through this vine of thorns, and it got caught around my neck, and I ran right into it, so it actually pressed into my neck. And not realizing what it was, I grabbed it, and I yanked, and so I slit my throat open. Like thankfully, no major arteries, but I'm like, like that's not good. But it's dark, you know, and I don't know how hurt I am. So I come running. Yeah, so I come running up, you know, up to the leader tent. I am not okay. The blood is gushing out all over my shirt and hands, and we never did night games after that. So I had great camp experiences, but I usually came home with some kind of ridiculously unplanned injuries. Don't get any ideas.
Yes. They don't let us do games outside at night. I already asked for that because I wanted to.
There's a reason why not.
They don't do it because they said, yeah, but they want us to give the grass a chance, but also there's some legal stuff. They just said the people above them don't let them do it. So if you ask me, the answer is going to be no, but it's not my fault. Just FYI. Had a few questions so the guys and girls can get to know you. You heard me talk about the this Exodus story and the whole idea of how tomorrow you're going to teach about being saved from sin to godliness. I want them to hear about how God's done that for you. I've shared sometimes here and there about myself, and I'm always open to share anything with you guys of what I've dealt with. But I think your story and getting to know you sounds a lot like how most of us would start out our lives. So if you could just give us a quick picture of like your early days, especially in regards to church, spiritual things, like up through like maybe school.
Yeah. I'm going to do this a few times, and I don't want you to feel embarrassed. I want to get to know you as I share a little more about myself. How many of you have pretty much, as long as you can remember, grown up in a church? Like going to church, parents rushing to church. Like, it's fine if not. I'm just curious because that's kind of how I grew up. And so, you know, if you go to a pretty good church, you've obviously heard about God and Jesus and whatever. And so when I was 6, yeah, I don't know how much a 6-year-old knows. You guys have younger brothers or sisters. Do they know anything? No. So when I was 6, though, I'd heard about Jesus and I knew I needed to be saved, right? I didn't really know what from sin, I guess. But like, what's a 6-year-old sin? You know, like, I disobeyed my parents. Which, by the way, in the Old Testament, you stone your kids for that. Right. Just so you guys know that. So I don't remember my parents, like, saying that, but clearly I was afraid of something. So I just remember asking my parents, like, hey, I need to be saved. What do I do? They were like, oh, you pray and ask Jesus to come into your heart and, you know, as your Savior. And
Which you think literally means come into your heart.
Right, I'm like, I'm filling up with Jesus. So I'll put it in quotes, I prayed the prayer, you know, the repeat after me, like, dear Jesus, like, I'm a sinner kind of thing. And so, you know, I became a Christian for all practical purposes when I was 6. And the truth is, like, then I wanted to be good, right? So I tried to obey my parents, like, you know, when I did bad things, I tried to tell the truth and confess that and continued to grow up in the church. And up through middle school, you know, that was just part of life. I went to school, we had a great family, like I really loved my family, they loved me. You know, we didn't do like a lot of faith stuff at home, but like every Christmas we had this little nativity scene where Mary and Joseph would move across the kitchen table. Every day we'd like push him a little closer to the manger, and then we'd put little baby Jesus in there, and we'd read the Christmas story. So like, I was very familiar with faith. I went to church. You guys know Sunday school. They teach all kinds of stuff growing up. So I got to middle school, and that was pretty much just how life was: faith and family and school and pretty.
And I've heard, yeah, that sounds right up what even the 6-year-old thing. I can relate to that. I've heard you talk about before that in high school things started to change. If you could, in a nutshell, kind of explain what was going on with you in high school.
Yeah, so I went to a really big public high school in Indianapolis. There were about 900 kids in my class when I started freshman year. And so, like, and what's funny is out of about 3,200 kids in my high school, I was one of 2 that went to my church. So like I had nobody from my high school that was actually going to church with me. So I developed, kind of like a lot of you guys probably have some relationships here in your youth group. I had great friends in my youth group. I had great friends at school, but they never mixed. So like I would go do youth group stuff, you know, when they had events and things planned, but most of the time I was hanging out with my school friends. And that doesn't sound like a big deal. But at that point, like, so I grew up, I played the drums. I got into a band. That's right, drummer, that's me. So I was in a band on the north side of Indianapolis. And it wasn't the band that was the problem, but like a lot of you guys know how culture works and you know, started getting really exposed to a lot of things like drugs and alcohol and other stuff here. But I was still hanging out with my church friends, so my life started to have this tension. And some of you guys probably feel that, right? You have some tension in your life between, you know, coming to church and trying to look a certain way, and some of the other time when you're with your friends, like you let that go, and your speech maybe changes, or the things you do are okay with changes. And so I started to see my life moving in 2 different directions. And the longer I went through high school, the harder it got to, like, you know, keep them separate. I would just tell you to be transparent. You know, there were days I'd be over here at some party and then have to go to church the next day, and I'd have slept like 3 hours, and I'd be sitting in my youth group hungover and trying to get those 2 things to line up. And so like the tension in my life became ridiculously hard to keep together. And I would say, like, I did such a good job of it, though. Like, nobody really knew. Like, nobody in church world knew anything about school world. And I was such a bad Christian that nobody in school world had any idea I was, like, going to church and doing anything that was religious or moral or whatever. So that continued, kind of began about sophomore year and continued on well into senior year.